Bum 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 bum. Just chat with Uncle Dominic.
With Uncle Dominic. Today, our topic is when life gives you lemons, what do you do? Let's overcome it by making lemonade. Today, we have our special guest, Paula Blair. Let's welcome Paula.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to be with you.
Yeah, it's nice to have you here today, Paula. Last time I was at your show, and
I
today and
know.
you're at my show today. That's
It's very
great.
exciting.
So, how was
Yeah,
your
I'm
day
really
today?
grateful. Yeah.
So, how's your day today?
It's it's not too bad, thanks. Yeah. We're having a strange summer in the northeast of England. It's sometimes it's cold and we've had a lot of wet weather lately, but the sun is trying to poke out today. So
Has
it's
it
not
been
too bad.
so? There's no rain at all.
Not rain today. No,
Okay.
we're getting a break from the rain today.
We've been getting lots of rain in Taiwan, so
Oh.
it's been good. Like I like the rain, it cools things down a lot. So yeah, okay. So let's start today by talking about life giving us lemons. That means we get lots of bad things happening in our life, right? And so when this quote says we have to overcome it by making lemonade, what do you think about this quote?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think in more recent times in my life, rather than scrambling to try to make lemonade, my response has been survival first.
Survival,
When
yeah.
you're piled on with lemons, shall we say? And yeah, so I think you survive it first. You get out of from under the pile of the lemons, and then you go, okay, what can I do with these lemons that I'm left with?
Right.
So I suppose it's those stages rather than going, oh, a bad thing happened, I'm going to immediately turn this around into a positive. I don't think that's realistic all the time. And it's great if you can do that. But I think it's like so much of life. It's contingent on so many factors, and it's all well and good having a positive attitude. But if you're really not well, that is a bit more difficult. It's not quite so easy as
Right.
that.
So
So
it
maybe
so that means
that's,
we're getting really bad lemons, so we cannot turn it into lemonade, right? It's too sour.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what can we do when that happens? Like, bad things keep hitting us, and so we want to be more positive in life. We want to be more motivated, but sometimes, like you said, it hits us and it keeps hitting us, right? And we and so how can we turn that around? Like, how can we focus on moving forward? Like seeing the
Mm.
light at the end of the tunnel, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think in a way I would scale it right back because I think you're striving to see that pinpoint light that is the end of the tunnel that seems very, very far away. And I think really what is in your immediate vicinity is, so we're moving on to this other analogy now. If you can imagine, right, I need to not stumble in the dark. I need to not fall over something and break my neck in the dark. So I need to actually get used to and become accustomed to and accommodate to my immediate surroundings in the present moment. So um, something I've always struggled with is that racing off into the future and
Mm.
building your hopes up or worrying about something that may never come.
So you're saying sometimes
And
if
if,
we put our hopes too high up, like bad things are happening right now, but we are not looking at it. We're, you know, trying to move past it, and it's not going to work. Is that what you're saying?
well, I think it's just it can be easy to become overwhelmed
Overwhelmed. That's the word.
by
Yeah.
the end point. There's this end point that you want to get to in your journey, but actually there's quite a long arduous journey to get through until you reach that point. So what can you do to help yourself on that journey? And maybe it's if you imagine yourself in that dark tunnel and the end of it is very far away and you can't really see what's going on,
Mm.
and you have to adjust. You have to learn to feel your way and find a new sensory approach to, okay, that sense has been taken away from me. I'm basically blinded by my environment. I'm disabled by my environment. So I have to adjust. so that I can survive and get through it and then get to the end of the tunnel. Does that make sense?
Right. So we have to adjust to survive, right? So I like that word because as humans, right, we are humans, and then we tend to adjust to environments. I mean, from generations of generations before, like human beings, we keep on adjusting ourselves to accommodate the environment as life goes on, right? So I guess somehow we forget how to adjust to it, and when bad things happen to us, we tend to, maybe for example, we watch this show and say, okay, we should be positive at the end, but like you said, it's too far of a tunnel sometimes, right? And so it's better to take one step at a time, I guess, right? So if we take one step at a time, that will be better, as because we'll be adjusting to it, right? I guess I could.
And then,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, there's an analogy that I was thinking about, where if we turn the lights off in our house, right? Turn all the lights off, so we instantly cannot see in the dark. So if we close our eyes for, like, I would say 3 seconds or for 5 seconds, I don't know how long do we take, and then we open our eyes after that, our eyes slowly adjusted to the lights, and we're getting used to be able to see in the dark because of that. So I guess, could that work somehow in life as well? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's very similar to what I was trying to get at with the tunnel analogy. Is so yours is the opposite in a way. It's when things are sometimes it can be too bright as well. That's another thing to consider. And it's that idea of your environment or the things that happen to you being disabling or debilitating in some way. It's okay. This has happened. I can't change that. No amount of moaning or mithering about it or mourning it is going to actually change the fact that this has happened to me. What can I do to survive in the moment and then hopefully begin to thrive? So it's, as you say, you can train yourself. You can train yourself to see better in the dark by becoming accustomed to it. And I think it's important to point out at this point, there are things in life that we shouldn't just accept. There are things that we should be angry about. There are things that happen to us. There are things that happen to people around us that are not acceptable. So I'm not saying just lie down and take it. I'm saying that if you're in a situation where, for example, you've been struck by an illness, or you've got an injury or something like that's happened to you, and it's not reversible, you can't change it, but you can maybe start to heal and adjust to a new way of living. Yet then it's what can you do for yourself? What can you do to be proud of yourself? You recalibrate to your situation. I've had my own struggles with mental health issues, and a lot of the time it was okay when it was really, really bad, when I was in a very deep depression, and it was actually affecting my memory, my cognitive functions. When it was at its worst, I could barely function in the day. And you recalibrate and you go, okay, well, I'm somebody who I used to be able to do this, no bother. And now I can barely get out of bed. So you recalibrate and you go, gosh, I got out of bed and I had a wash today and I didn't feel like doing any of that. And I think that's amazing. And you need to actually be your own friend and build yourself up again. So that's an example.
How did you build yourself up? Like, because, and I'm not saying a lot of people, but there are people who get mental illness. Well, not in the sense of mental illness, but more like depression. Like, they got hit so hard that they drop low and the morale is low, right? So how can you pick yourself up? Like you said, you pick yourself up, but how do people do that? Like,
Yeah, and again, it's really challenging. It's not easy, and we can sit and say all these adages all day, but it's not going to help. What ended up really helping me was, and I can't even remember where I heard this, probably on a podcast.
All right.
But
so everyone should listen to podcasts. There we go.
Just listen to podcasts. So the best thing ever. Listen to all the podcasts you can find. But I remember hearing, the advice: stop writing to-do lists and start writing I did lists. So list the things that you did do. And that was one tiny thing I changed because I was somebody who, up until a few years ago, I was on an academic career pathway. I was used to working horrendous hours, but I loved it. I was doing research, I was teaching, I was working with complex ideas. I had a far too heavy workload, but I loved what I did. And I was busy all the time, and just ahead swimming with all this stuff. And I was so energetic about it. But then I got hit hard with an illness, and I it's very difficult. I mean, it was so bad that it really actually affected my brain. I lost words from my vocabulary. I experienced aphasia. So when you're somebody who so much of your life is words and ideas and writing, and you can't do those things properly anymore, and you're actually struggling to make a basic sentence, that's really hard. And so that was something I started to do, was rather than write all these lists, because that's what I would have done in my job, was write, this is all my big to-do list of what I need to do. You check that off, brilliant, happy days. And I was writing these to-do lists, and I was getting through barely any of it because I just couldn't do anything anymore. And so I switched it over, and I did start to write, okay, so I did this morning. I did that this morning. I did that laundry today. I cleaned a window, and it was down to basic domestic tasks. But as I say, it's that recalibration where I didn't feel like doing any of those things. I felt like lying in bed and dying, but I didn't do that. I got up, and I found a reason to get up, and I achieved something, even if it was something seemingly really tiny and small and I wouldn't have even thought about doing before. I did it, and I just slowly learned to be happy with that I could still do that, so that, and eventually you're just on a pathway to getting well. And it has taken a really long time. It's taken several years to get from that point. It's taken 4 years to being able to sit and have this conversation with you.
Well,
now, and
if we look at you this way right now, we can't see what's happening before, but I'm glad that what you have experienced have brought you to where you are, and you are doing podcasts and at audiovisual cultures at YouTube to share your experiences with others, and I think that's great. I mean, at that time you probably didn't see it, but right now, if you look back, like you are looking back at it, your life has changed you to become who you are, right? So you technically, in somehow, you have turned the lemons into lemonade without knowing it yet, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I do still mourn for the life I maybe could have had. I wonder if there's parallel universes where there's a different Paula who made it, who is in the career that she trained for and planned for and fought so hard to get. I wonder if, but maybe she's not as happy or in as safe a place as I am.
Here's the thing,
I don't know.
We do wonder like things like that quite often, and I felt like when I was much younger, I do think about that, and when I think about that, I feel like I'm only bringing myself down. Like I should just be happy with where I am right now, and try to make something out of it. And I heard you said the word couple of times earlier, like to survive, right? So I need to survive by not worrying about what I could have done. I mean, what's the point of worrying about it? I feel like if we worry too much about what we could have done, then we are not doing what we are supposed to do right now. Like you mentioned earlier, the checklist, right? You did a checklist where you are writing things that you have done today. So I think that's great, because sometimes when we do a checklist and then we write the things that we're supposed to do, but we didn't do them, the consequences probably could be like, oh no, I should have done this, I didn't do it. And so it brings a negative part into our life, right? So I feel like we shouldn't think too much about what if. Like if I'm gonna go think about what if right now, there's so much things I can think of, and I think that's not in a good way somehow, right? And I feel like that is one problem. What is one thing that instinctively that we tend to do, like everyone tends to do. What if? What if I didn't do this today? What if I didn't go to work today? What if I've done this when I was in college? I mean, all these things that we could have. What could have? I mean, we've technically wasted a few minutes of our life just thinking about it. Just for example, like this morning when I woke up pretty early this morning, and I had an option to go back to sleep because I was pretty tired. But then I feel like I need to get up. I need to get up and start doing something. And so I actually got up and started doing something, getting stuff done, and I had a good start today. But of course, again, things hit me along the way at work, and I'm like, oh no. So I want to share this, right? So I want you to take your idea on this as well. So I had a student today that was completely rebellious against everything, like, because we have online teaching right now. So I'm like, okay, can you show me what you have written? Because we are writing an essay today, and so show me what you have written, and then so I can take a look at it. So I had three students in this class, small class. Two of them showed me their writing, but this one boy says no, right? And he turned off his camera and he left the class, and he came back in. I'm like, okay, and then he kicked me out of my own class by clicking on the Google stuff. I was like, what? And I went back into the group, and he starts singing songs, and I'm like, what's going on? Okay, so I have a few options, right? What would you do, Paula, if this was the case?
Oh, that's a really tricky one. Really tough. I mean, in a way, one option would be to go, okay, you want to lead this class so bad, go for it. I get paid either way, kid. That's one thing to do. That was one approach I used to take with students when they wouldn't stop talking in class. Is like, I would just stop and say, I get paid either way. You're disrupting all your classmates.
Right.
Go for it.
So here's what I did, right? I took my phone, all right? I went to my the office lady, and I was like, okay, I need the phone number to his mom. I'm gonna call his mom, and so they gave me a number, and so I had a number. But at this time, this is instinctive, right? This is anger. This is rage, and I feel like, what am I doing? I told myself instantly, what am I doing? I shouldn't be calling the mom. There's gotta be other ways. So it took me a minute to 2 minutes to actually calm myself down. And I said, okay, class, we're going to take a break now. So we take a 5 minutes break. So we took a 5 minutes break. And that's when I calm myself down. And by thinking, he's not making me angry. I'm making myself angry, not him, right? So he's doing something on his own stuff. Whatever he's doing, I don't know what he's doing. What is he going through in his time, in his life? Maybe he had a bad day. So I don't know. What I do know was I'm making myself angry by accepting him, doing something to me. So in this case, I'm like, okay, calm myself down, and then go back to class in 5 minutes time. So when I go back to class, I continue my lessons, and then I had a chat with the students, and everything was fine after that. So I feel like, oh, I did something. What did I do? I didn't get angry. I didn't try to control the environment. I let it happen, like you said, adapt to it. So in this case, I learned an experience that not everyone is the same. Things happen for a reason. So I'm thinking, if I had, call his mom, do something bad, whatever, and get angry, in the long run, I don't think that will benefit me somehow, right? So I feel like in life as well, like if we get hit by, bad things, like there are some bad things. I have one bad regret that I'm still overcoming it. It's still pretty tough, but that's what it is. It happens, and there's nothing we can do about it. If we worry about it too much, I feel like it's taking too much of our time. Where else we can think of it differently, right? So I think that's what you did, Paula, with your life. Like you had your mental health issue, and then you overcome it by telling yourself that I need to get up, I need to start doing things, and you did it. So I guess I see you where you are right now, but there are process that you have encountered, and I guess that helps viewers out there who are listening to us right now about how you overcome it. I think that's great, right? That's a great experience that you share, because not many people will share the experience because they feel like it's too personal. So I do have a question, Paula. Like, I didn't think you mentioned it, but did you approach, like, you had this problem? Did you approach a medical, like a medical institution, like a hospital or anything at all, or did you just forge on? Because I do know people who says, if we're having mental issues, we're having problems with our life, we shouldn't see doctors. We should, just drink water and get on with life. So what did you do? Did you actually see any hospitals or anything like that?
That's a really great question, Dominic. Here in the UK, our mental health provision is poor, and we're reasonably good at reacting to a crisis such as what's happening at the moment when it's physiological illness. But when it comes to the mind, there isn't really huge amounts of help. At the time when I got ill in my workplace, because it was workplace abuse and bullying that really caused what happened to me, my line manager made me go to counselling at the university, and I knew that was wrong for me. I knew I didn't need counselling, because counsellors they dig at things and they try and get you to figure it out for yourself. They're usually not trained psychologists. And I knew that wasn't what I needed, and it wasn't what was going to help what was actively happening to me. And I was right, because it unleashed a whole load of very buried trauma that wasn't the problem. The problem was I had colleagues who were treating me abysmally and bullying me every single day, and I couldn't do my job properly. And that, a counsellor who was really interested in psychology and thought I was interesting because I had childhood trauma, digging at that actually made things a lot worse and made it so that it was, it was just impossible. I couldn't breathe, it was so bad. And it was causing more physiological effects. So I ended up having to go to A&E, accident and emergency, because I couldn't breathe. I had chest pains. It was the stress of everything was causing me to become physically unwell as well. And they did all the tests. They did all the heart tests, blood tests, everything. Everything was fine. I was healthy. But clearly I wasn't well. So that the last thing that it was clearly stress and anxiety. So so I ended up getting a lot of help, and I was so grateful to the nurses and doctors who thing to do when that's what you have. And it was actually it was actually only a few months ago, so 4 years later, that through a charity I got the help that I needed from a trained professional.
So what kind of charities that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so it's a charity local to where I live. I live in Newcastle upon Tyne, and it's called Talking Helps Newcastle. Okay. And there are quite a few mental health charities in the UK. So there's a charity called Mind, and there's various other ones, and and then there's the likes of the Samaritans, and there are call lines, helplines that you can call if you're feeling really bad, and really there's somebody to talk to. And then there are charities like the one I went to that you can self-refer to if you're struggling to get seen by your doctor for this. There are waiting lists for some of the therapies of over a year.
Wow.
And if you're somebody who is experiencing major depression, clinical or manic depression, if you're if you're feeling suicidal or you're experiencing suicidal ideation, you end up just having to ring one of these helplines, and somebody's literally talking you down from a bridge sometimes. And thankfully it never came to that for me, but I had enough family and friend support that I could get through. I had people to call, but I think for people who really get very, very sick in the UK, there's not a lot of there's just not a lot of places they can go to, and so we have very high rates of people taking their own lives, and especially the likes of young men, because we've talked about this before, you and I, where it's men especially aren't encouraged to talk about what's going on with them,
Right.
what's going on with them mentally, and there has to be a front of everything's fine and they're happy, and so it's even worse for them actually a lot of the time. And then women on the flip side of that tend not to be taken seriously because they're just written off as hysterical and dramatic and things, so it's not really, nobody can win. But yeah, so I think in the end, it's a lot of the time you're on your own and you're looking for solutions by yourself so often, and a lot of people don't make it.
That is true. I feel like it's the same case in Taiwan as well. And like I've been in Taiwan for 14 years now, and actually I have a friend of a friend that has taken his life in Taiwan, but I don't know him personally, but I have met him a few times. But that is the problem with life actually, right? Some people don't know where to find help. Like I mean, in the UK, I'm glad you guys have charity and stuff, but in Taiwan, I'm not sure if there are any, charities like that. But I'm sure there are people who to seek help. There are ways for them to get help and stuff. So yeah, but I feel like there should be more other options besides just waiting for this charity to call you or taking the effort to call them. Like you mentioned, you had support from your family. I mean, I like that. That's great. But what if there are people out there who don't have support? That's when, like you said, like they take their own lives. So there's gotta be other ways where we can reach these people. I don't know too much about it, but as an educator in my school, like everywhere I teach, I tend to look for that as well, like opportunities to share like good experiences for my students, for them to learn that life sometimes it's hard, but there are ways to overcome it. And so, just a quick experience sharing. One of my experience was there was this high school that I was teaching. There was this girl in one of my classes. I noticed at first she was kind of getting bullied by students, classmates. So there's one day I actually saw her and I was crying. So I walked up to her. Are you okay? Is everything fine? Like the first thing I said, do you need to go see somebody? Is there someone I can help you with, like to bring a counselor to you? Like you mentioned, counselors are not great, but for me, I feel like even though they are not great, there is a chance for someone to to talk it out. I mean, they're trained somehow, right? I'm not, and so I'm just a teacher. So I told her, I said,
Yeah.
yeah,
I should stress, sorry, it's not that I'm saying they're not great, and a lot of counselors are really, really great at their jobs. It's just they're not appropriate all the
right,
time, is
right,
what I
yeah,
was saying.
right.
So just to clarify
Yeah,
that.
okay. That's good. That's good, Claire. So I was saying. So anyway, so I told this girl, and so I was saying, you could see the counselor, and she says no. So here's the thing that I realized: people tend not to, go for a counselor because they know that they're just gonna talk and talk and talk or whatever, and I'm not gonna listen to them, right? So anyway, so I asked her, okay, well, is there anything I can do for you? If not, then I'm just gonna walk back to my office. But I feel like there's something I can do for you. Are you sure you're okay? And so she said no. So I sat down there and waited for a few minutes. Eventually, she turned to me and talked to me. So she was telling me her problems. I was like, okay. So eventually, after that, she has been really nice, and she's been coming to my office, and she has been talking to me quite often. And I find that kind of bothersome sometimes because I'm working. But at the same time, I feel like, okay, if someone's opening up, I should just sit there and just, yeah, what's up, and then listen. And eventually, she's different now. If I looked at her right now, she's totally changed. She's like an amazing person. She has more confidence in her life. So I feel like sometimes, if we cannot find support, we should, as a person, we should, I don't know, try to, think that there is support out there, and we need to, make the phone call or talk to anyone, random person, and maybe, just maybe, that person could help us, right? What do you think about that? Like random person helping us in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, it's streetcar named Desire. I always depend on the kindness of strangers. I think it's really true. And sometimes you can have such a profound relationship with somebody you've talked to for 20 minutes and you'll never see again in your life. It can
Right.
really help. And I think what's been key in your experience here is that you gave that person time and you believed them. And just being believed can be the thing that is the turning point, I find.
Right.
Because certainly in my experience and what had happened to me back then was I was being gaslit. I don't know if you use this expression very much in Asia, but this idea that somebody's driving you crazy. They're telling you something and you're experiencing something different, and you know that they're not telling you the truth, but then you confront them with it and they go, oh no, 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 you're just imagining things, so it's gaslighting. And that was happening to me a lot in my workplace, and I had all this evidence, but they were telling me all these other things and it just wasn't true. And when you're being driven mad like that, you're just going, is it me? Am I going mad? And then you're seeing the evidence you've collected and you're going, no, I am right. This is actually happening. I've got all this documentation that proves it.
Right.
And, and when you find someone who goes, I know what you're going through. I recognize this. I understand it. I'm hearing you. This sounds tough. Sometimes that can be all it needs to tip that person the other direction. And the relief you can feel at just somebody understanding it and knowing, yes, this is happening to you. You're not going mad. That can be all it takes, honestly. So maybe that's what happened with that person. That person maybe felt that they were not being seen or heard, and you made them feel seen and heard. And it's like I say, the locum doctor who was in the hospital that day, taking the time to have a chat with me and recognizing what was happening to me. I was in that guy's company for no more than 10 minutes, and I've never forgotten him. He may well have saved my life. There were other people on that journey who may well have saved my life as well, because they recognized it, they saw it happening, and they said, yes, this is happening to you. You will get through this. It will get easier. So being that for somebody else, it can be amazing. It can be incredible. And I suppose that's something to point out to anybody who might be listening to or viewing this is maybe you're okay, but it's really good to check in with people and just, because we are also used to putting on that social front and presenting as if we're fine when we're really not. And it's so good to just check in with somebody and say, look, are you okay? Is everything all right with you? I'm here if you want to chat, and really mean that, and like you say, it can be annoying when somebody takes you up on that, but it's better than the alternative if it's that serious.
I'm not gonna
Really?
I'm not gonna use the word annoying so much. I'm gonna say bothersome, but in a nicer way, because annoying is kind of like, yeah, don't annoy me. I'm doing something more important. Like I'm kind of preparing for my lessons. So if someone interrupted me, I feel like, oh, you're taking some of my time away. But yeah, I feel like that's what it is right now, because I'm trying to move my life in a way that if I see someone that needs help, it goes better this time. So I was saying earlier, because right now, in my life, I try to do things like, if someone needs help along the way, if I can do something to help, I would try. And so this experience that I was sharing earlier, I saw a scooter requiring help. Like it ran out of battery. And so what I did was I stopped next to him. I said, hey, do you need help? And he says, yes. He's riding a Gogoro scooter. So he's saying, yes, I need my battery charged. And so I was like, okay, you can ride my scooter. I let him ride my scooter to go get his battery changed. And so it took him 30 minutes. And that's 30 minutes of my time to go to work. And so I'm like, okay, hurry up, please. But so anyway, so he came back. And then He exchanged everything and he left. I mean, he didn't say thank you. So I'm kind of like, what? But at the same time, I feel like, oh, I helped someone. So that
You don't do it for the thanks. You did it because it was the right thing to do.
That's right.
That's
That's right.
that. I know it's really annoying, but that's something I'm very firm about saying to myself, reminding myself about is, did you do this to be thanked for it? Because that's the wrong motivation to do something. It's somebody, you identified somebody needing help. Maybe that person is, not a nice person, or maybe they were stressed, or there's something going on there, but that's nothing
right.
to do with you personally.
Exactly.
You-
So
you
that's
did a
that's
good
how I
thing.
feel like right now I feel
Yeah.
like it's not only me that's having problems. I'm sure there's other people having problems. If I can be there to help someone solve their problem, be the conductor or whatever, be the output. I mean, I think somehow that's great. But I think I learned that as I become more of an educator. I mean, way before that, before I became an educator, it was a bit difficult. I'm thinking more about my own life. Like, what can I do to make myself richer or whatever. But as I become an educator, as I slowly start teaching, and eventually, I see my life change as well. And so I feel like, sometimes this is what I'm saying. Sometimes if I want to be better, I need to help others to be better. So it kind of like do good and someone else will do good back to you one day, something like that, like a cycle. That's what I feel like. That's what I tell my kids all the time. If you do something good, sometimes one day you might need that help, and then they might help you in the end. So like, invest in the
For all
future.
you know, that person someday, maybe in a couple of years' time, maybe they'll come across somebody who needs help and they go, oh, I remember that time that guy helped me and really didn't have to do that. I'm going to do the same for another person. And you might have put that into the world. So, you just can't control somebody. I think somebody's behavior in the moment isn't necessarily, and yes, it is annoying. And you think, well, it's just rude to not say thanks very much, mate. And,
Yes.
but that's not why you did it. So it's one of those. And I think so much of that is really important. And I think it is really important to stress that kind of thing. It's why do we do these things? Why do we? Because you do it in part for yourself when you do a good deed. You do it because then you feel good and you know that you help somebody and you put something positive out into the world. So doing it for thanks isn't the right reason to do it, I would
Definitely
say.
Right. Okay, so to continue our conversation, I have one quote that I want to put into today. Another one that's really good that I've been trying to work on this on my own self in my own life. So I'm just gonna put it up here, so everyone can see it. So I'll read it out. It says, "When something bad happens, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or can let it strengthen you." Okay, so I'm gonna read it one more time for Paula because she can see it. When something bad happens, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you. Okay. So what do you think about that, Paula? Like, I feel like that's it. We have choices. So I want to let it strengthen me. So I need to, accept that these things happen. And so what can I do to move forward? And what would I be in the next 5 hours or the next day? Right. So how do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's another really good one, and it's probably very close to similar sayings where you think, well, it's not about what happens to you, it's how you react to what's happened to you. And I suppose this is an elaboration on it. And you could take these to mean you could apply these in various ways, I think, because destruction isn't always a negative thing. What if it destroyed you to the point where you could rebuild something? What if it tore things down enough for you that you go, I'm going to totally revolutionize my life after this. I'm never going to let that sort of thing happen to me again. So you can actually flip the destruction idea in the middle on its head a little bit, I think. And the definition, I think that's a really important one, because that was something I grappled with quite a lot, where, and I think especially in the English language, we have a tendency to say I am, and we embody that
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
I am hungry. I am tired, and we embody it. And it's interesting learning other languages where that's not how you would say it. And so when you say, I am a survivor, if you turn that around to even just say, I survived that, it's different, isn't it? It's just a little bit different. It's a subtle difference. And I think, again, the idea of it defining you and refusing to say, I am that thing, and going like, I survived this, and now this is what I'm doing. Again, just turning things a little bit on their head. And the last one was, just remind me of the last one again, Dominic,
Okay.
please.
Um, there, when something bad happens, you have three choices. You can either let it define you, let it destroy you, or you can let it strengthen you.
Or let it strengthen you. So again, the choice of words there is interesting, because that puts me in mind of the phrase, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of hokum. I think that's nonsense,
That's nonsense.
because
Okay.
sometimes the thing that doesn't kill you really debilitates you and changes your life forever. So it doesn't necessarily make you stronger. I mean, I think we're seeing that in this pandemic right now, and problems with long COVID. It has, rendered a workforce out of action, really, especially in this country at the minute. And so it's just not true. But I think what we can take it to mean from what you're saying is, the experience itself is not what strengthens you. It's how you react to it. It's, have you refused to let it define you, and you've gone, right, okay, I've survived that. I've let, it's destroyed this bit of my life, and that way of living my life cannot be returned to, but I can rebuild. I can make a new way of living my life. And then that's maybe where the strength can come from. And actually, it's not the experience that strengthens you. You have strengthened you, because you're the one who confronted it, and you're the one who got through it. You're the one, if you allow it to. So again, it's if you're going to embody anything, it's, I am strong. I have the strength. I possess the strength to do this. It may take me years to do it, but I will do it because I'm determined to do it. And as long as you put something into it and you have a go and you try, it will improve. And you may not get the dream life that you've always wanted, but it's trying to go, I think, back again to the tunnel analogy.
Mm-hmm.
How can I survive and then thrive in the environment in which I find myself? And how can I be proud of myself with what I'm doing in that environment? So I think if you can get yourself to that point, then you're on to something. And it's taken me a very long time to learn that. That has not, that has come from an awful lot of experience. So
Thank you,
it's not
Paula.
easy.
I know it's not easy. I mean, it's all. It's
Yeah.
this is. I think we all conclude today. Like everything is our own choice. We have to, make it, do it ourselves. We cannot rely on others so much. But of course, there are other supports elsewhere. So we should always grab those support to help us. It's not going to be big, but there, as long there is something. I've seen that you mentioned, it helps to push you to move forward already. So I think that's great. That's great. So we're about end of time. So I want to thank all the viewers who have watched us. Sorry for the stream ending crashes. We had 4 crashes already, and so I apologize for that. So it's for some of us that have missed some important parts that Paula has said, I'm very sorry, or some of the parts that I was talking about, so I'm very sorry about that. But at the end of this stream later, I'll put it all together into one video and put it on YouTube, so anyone can go onto my YouTube at Uncle Dominic Storytime and watch that, or you can go to Paula's Audio Visual Cultures on YouTube and you can watch her other videos there as well. Again, thank you, Paula, for coming in today. Oh, you got muted. There's no sound. Your mic
Sorry, I was muted.
I was like, what's happening?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I've really loved it. If I could just really quickly say, to everybody who might see this, do not be too proud to ask for help. We do not exist in a vacuum. Yes, the strength can come from us, but we need support to do that. So just, ask for help. Do not be scared to ask for help. It's not silly. But yes, thank you so much for listening, for watching. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I've really enjoyed being able to talk this out with you as well.
Thank you, Paula, for coming in again. So maybe next time we can have you come on the show again next time.
I'd love to come back. Yeah, we can talk about something more cheery next time,
Cheery,
probably.
Sure. Thank you again. All right, thank you everybody. So goodbye. If you like, please subscribe to us on YouTube. Again, Uncle Dominic Storytime on YouTube, or Audio Visual Cultures with Paula on YouTube. Okay, thank you guys. Goodbye.
Bye.